They never saw you coming. To them, you were just another face in the crowd. Someone insignificant, someone easy to dismiss. They thought you were overthinking. That your intuition was just paranoia. That the shifts you sensed were nothing more than imagination. But time has a way of proving the truth. Every single thing they mocked you for, every warning you gave, every instinct you followed has come to pass exactly as you knew it would. And now, as the illusion around them crumbles, they're left grasping for explanations, scrambling to rewrite the past, hoping to distort reality just enough to save themselves. But this was never about what you knew. It was about who you are. You were never meant to fit in, never meant to be controlled, never meant to play by their rules. While they followed blindly, you questioned. While they built their towers on lies, you stood on truth. And now, as their foundation collapses, they fear not only what has been exposed, but the fact that you were always ahead of them. They never feared your knowledge. They feared your presence. They tried to manipulate the narrative, to twist facts, to keep you second-guessing yourself. They set traps, whispered lies, wove distortions so meticulously that even they began to believe their own deceptions. But truth has a way of standing on its own. And the truth is, you never needed their validation, their acceptance, or their approval. You knew who you were before they even understood what they were up against. And now, their worst nightmare has become reality. They have lost control of the story. You don't have to fight to expose them. You don't have to seek revenge. The weight of their own choices is doing the work for you. Because deception only works when people are willing to forget, but too many have witnessed the truth. And the memory of their lies will haunt them long after the dust settles. The game they played, the power they thought they held, the carefully crafted illusions they depended on, it's all falling apart. And you remain, standing, rising, walking in your purpose while they watch their empire of deceit collapse into nothing. If this message resonates with you, type 777 in the comments and subscribe to the Chosen Warriors. They never expected you to see through the illusion. In their eyes, you were nothing more than another name, another presence to overlook, someone they could easily manipulate or dismiss. They spoke over you, dismissed your insights, and convinced themselves that your awareness was nothing more than paranoia. They believed they could control the way you perceived reality, gaslight you into doubting your own instincts, and bury the truth beneath layers of deception. But what they failed to realize is that some things cannot be hidden forever. No matter how many lies are spun, no matter how much distraction is thrown in the way, truth has a way of surfacing, always. From the very beginning, something inside of you saw what others could not. While they moved through life blindly, content to accept the surface-level stories they were told, you felt the shifts before they were visible. You sensed the weight in the air before the storm hit. You saw the cracks forming before the foundation started to crumble. And that was never by accident. It was never just a hunch. It was divine clarity, a knowing that went beyond logic, beyond explanation, an instinct that set you apart from those who depended on illusions to maintain their sense of control. They told you that you were imagining things, that you were reading too much into the patterns, that your discernment was just a sign of overthinking. But time has revealed the truth in ways they can no longer ignore. Every warning you voiced, every subtle shift you detected, every uneasy feeling you had about the people around you, it has all unfolded exactly as you knew it would. The very ones who swore you were delusional are now struggling to make sense of the chaos that they once claimed would never come. And the most ironic part? They are now looking for answers in the same places they once told you to ignore. What terrifies them the most is not just the fact that you were right. It's the realization that you were always ahead of them, that while they were still playing the game, you had already seen the final move. They never feared what you knew. They feared that you were beyond their control. Because you were never meant to blend in, never meant to be manipulated, never meant to play by the rules they set. They wanted you to be predictable, easy to control, easy to silence, but you were always the exception. You were always the one who could see through the fog when everyone else was lost in it. Now, as the consequences of their own choices unfold, they are left with nothing but regret. They see the warnings they ignored, the moments they dismissed as paranoia, the truths they mocked now standing as undeniable proof before them. Their arrogance once gave them confidence. Their illusions once made them feel untouchable. But reality has a way of humbling even the most prideful. And now they are left scrambling, searching for a way to undo what they swore would never happen. They thought they had control of the story. They thought they could rewrite the truth, twist the narrative, and reshape reality to fit their version of events. But there is one thing they never accounted for. Truth is not something that bends to human will. It does not conform to deception. It does not yield to manipulation. The truth stands firm, unshaken, even when those who tried to suppress it have fallen apart. And now, as their illusions collapse, they are forced to face what they worked so hard to deny. The weight of reality presses down on them, forcing them to acknowledge what they once refused to see. But it is too late. They cannot go back and undo the words they spoke in certainty. They cannot erase the actions they took with full confidence that they would never face the consequences. The past is written. Their disbelief, their arrogance, their refusal to acknowledge what was right in front of them, it is all etched into history. Undeniable and irreversible, they scroll through their memories, trying to find an escape, a way to make sense of how everything unraveled so quickly. But the truth is, nothing happened suddenly. It was always there, always waiting to be acknowledged. They just chose not to see it. And now, as they stand in the ruins of their own making, they realize the one thing they never wanted to admit. You were right all along. But for you, none of this is surprising. You never needed their validation, never needed their approval to confirm what you already knew. While they are now lost in the wreckage, you are standing firm, just as you always were. Because the truth was never something you had to force, it was always on your side. Fear has a way of revealing itself, no matter how well it is hidden. At first, it was subtle, the hesitation in their voices, the stolen glances when they thought you weren't looking, the sudden shifts in the way they treated you. They tried to mask it with arrogance, laughter, and dismissive words, but deep down, something about you unsettled them. And it wasn't just what you knew. It wasn't just the fact that you saw through their games, their illusions, their carefully crafted deceptions. No, what terrified them the most was who you are. You were never meant to fit into their mold. While they followed the script, you rewrote it. While they clung to the rules of their own making, you operated on a level they could never reach. You did not need their approval to validate your existence. You did not seek their recognition to confirm your worth. And that was the problem. Their power depended on control, on dictating the narrative, shaping reality, making sure that those around them remained blind to the truth. But you saw too much. You understood too deeply, and that made you dangerous. They whispered among themselves, trying to find ways to contain you, to force you into a box that you were never meant to fit in. They convinced themselves that if they ridiculed you enough, doubted you enough, undermined you enough, you would eventually break. But you didn't. Every attempt to suppress you only revealed their own insecurity. Every effort to silence you only highlighted their own fear. And no matter what they did, they could not shake the unsettling truth that you were never afraid of them. But they were always afraid of you. At first, they thought they could ignore it. They convinced themselves that you were just another challenge to overcome, another voice to drown out. But as time passed, they began to feel it, the weight of your presence, the undeniable force that separated you from the rest. They watched as you walked forward, unbothered by their schemes, untouched by their manipulations, and the more they observed, the more they realized the truth. You were not someone they could control. That was when their fear turned to desperation. They could no longer pretend that you were insignificant. They could no longer convince themselves that you were just another person in the crowd. And so, they tried harder, spinning new lies, setting new traps, doing everything in their power to pull you down. But the harder they pushed, the more obvious their fear became. Because control is only an illusion, and they were never in control to begin with. What terrifies them most is the realization that no matter what they do, you are still standing. They have thrown everything they could at you, doubt, deception, betrayal, yet none of it has worked. You did not crumble under the weight of their schemes. You did not lose yourself in their web of manipulation. And that, more than anything, is what they cannot understand. They have built their lives on deception, on illusions so fragile that they cannot afford for anyone to see through them. They have carefully crafted a reality where they hold all the power, where their words shape the world around them. But now, as the cracks begin to show, as the truth starts to seep through, they realize that they are the ones trapped in their own illusion. They thought they were the ones orchestrating the game, but in reality, they were the ones being exposed. You do not have to prove yourself to them. You do not have to fight to expose their lies. Their fear is already doing that for you. Every move they make, every desperate attempt to rewrite the past, only serves as further evidence of what they have tried so hard to hide. And now, as they scramble to regain control, they are forced to face a truth they never wanted to accept. You were never the one playing their game. You were always something greater. They wanted you to doubt yourself. to question your own power, to believe that you needed their validation. But deep down, they always knew the truth, they just hoped you would never realize it. Because once you did, once you truly understood who you are and what you carry, there would be nothing they could do to stop you. And now, as they watch you rise, as they see you move forward without hesitation, they finally understand that their greatest fear has come true. You were never meant to be controlled. You were never meant to blend in. You were always meant to stand apart. And no matter how much they try to deny it, they see it now. There was a time when you thought you had to prove yourself, that you had to fight to be heard, to defend the truth you saw so clearly. But you have come to understand that you never needed to struggle. The truth has always been on your side, working in silence, exposing what was meant to stay hidden, dismantling every lie built against you. You do not have to explain yourself. You do not have to convince anyone. Reality itself is shifting in your favor. And those who once ridiculed you are now the ones grasping for understanding. The ones who once spoke with such confidence, so sure of their own deception, have fallen silent. Their words, once sharp and filled with conviction, now waver under the weight of what they can no longer deny. The arrogance they carried so effortlessly is cracking, giving way to hesitation, uncertainty, and fear. They thought they had rewritten the story, altered perception to suit their needs. But truth does not yield to human manipulation. It does not waver under pressure. It does not fade with time. Truth stands firm, waiting, and when the moment is right, it rises, undeniable, inescapable, and unshakable. You have seen it unfold. The same people who once dismissed you, who labeled you as paranoid, who tried to make you second-guess yourself, are now the ones searching for answers. They are watching, silently hoping that maybe they were wrong about you, hoping that somehow, what is happening now is just coincidence. But deep down, they know the truth. They see the consequences of their actions unraveling before them. The very warnings they ignored now shaping their reality in ways they never expected. They spent so much time trying to suppress the truth, twisting it, burying it beneath distractions, silencing those who dared to speak against their version of reality. But no amount of manipulation can alter what is real. No matter how many lies are woven, no matter how much effort is put into distorting perception, truth remains. And now, it is surfacing in a way they can no longer control. The very foundation they built their certainty on is crumbling beneath them. And for the first time, they are experiencing the weight of their own deception. They are realizing, too late, that their words are powerless against reality. The same voices that once mocked now whisper in doubt. The same confidence they carried so boldly has turned into silent contemplation. And while they struggle to understand what is happening, you remain exactly where you have always been, unmoved, untouched by their games, standing in the clarity you never abandoned. You did not need to fight to be seen. You did not need to argue to be right. Truth has fought on your behalf. And now, it speaks louder than anything they could ever say. They are beginning to see the weight of their own history. Every word they spoke against you, every action taken to discredit you, every lie told to shift the blame, none of it has disappeared. They might have hoped that time would erase their past, that people would forget, that the narrative they built would replace what really happened. But deception only works when people are willing to forget. And too many people remember. Too many have witnessed the unfolding of events, seen the shift in the air, watched as reality aligned itself with what they once mocked. They are beginning to realize that there is no way out. No amount of justification, no amount of revision can erase the truth that has already been revealed. They thought they could manipulate perception forever. But perception has turned against them. Now, they are the ones being questioned, the ones being doubted, the ones being left behind in the wreckage of their own creation. And there is nothing they can do to stop it. You do not have to expose them. You do not have to prove anything. The truth has done that for you. They are living in the aftermath of their own deception, trapped in a reality they can no longer escape. And the more they try to fight against it, the more they realize just how powerless they have become. Because the truth is not something they can manipulate. It is not something they can rewrite. It is not something they can control. They wanted to see you struggle. They wanted to watch you react, to force you into a battle that was never yours to fight. But you knew better. You knew that your strength was not in proving yourself, not in defending what was already true, but in standing firm while the truth did the work for you. And now, as they stand in the ruins of what they thought was their victory, they finally understand that they never had power over you to begin with. They built their foundation on deception. And now, that foundation is gone. They stood firm in their lies. But lies do not last. And you You never had to lift a finger. You never had to fight their battles. Because when the truth is on your side, victory is already secured. The winds are shifting, and they feel it. The ground beneath them is no longer solid. The walls they built to protect their illusions are crumbling, and the very reality they once controlled is slipping through their fingers. They had convinced themselves that their foundation was unshakable, that the empire of deception they constructed would stand the test of time. But nothing built on lies can withstand the weight of truth. Nothing rooted in manipulation can survive when the storm comes. And now, as the dust settles, they are left with the realization that only what is real remains, and they were never standing on anything real to begin with. They thought they could outrun the consequences, escape the judgment, and rewrite the past to fit their needs. They spent years crafting their version of events, feeding their own narratives, and ensuring that every detail aligned with the reality they wanted others to believe. But the storm has swept through, and their carefully woven web has unraveled. The same words they used to condemn others have come back to haunt them. The same accusations they threw so easily into the air now linger around them like a heavy fog. And no matter how desperately they try to rewrite history, the truth stands tall, unmoved by their efforts. They were warned, they were given countless opportunities to correct their path, to acknowledge the deception, to turn away before the inevitable collapse. But arrogance made them blind. They mistook the silence of others as approval, mistook patience as weakness, mistook their own manipulations as victory. And now, as they watch everything fall apart, they are forced to ask themselves a question they never thought they would have to face. What happens when there is no one left to believe the lie? They had built their confidence on the idea that people would always follow their lead. That as long as they spoke with authority, others would listen, but authority built on falsehoods is nothing more than a borrowed throne. And the time has come for them to give it up. The voices that once echoed their words are fading. The support they once depended on is disappearing. And now, for the first time, they stand alone, no allies, no enablers, no safety net to cushion the fall. They look around, hoping to find someone who will still believe them, someone who will validate their false reality. But all they see are people who have moved on, people who have finally seen through the facade. And that is what haunts them the most. It's not just the loss of power. It's not just the exposure of their deception. It's the realization that in the end, they were never as important as they thought they were. They spent so much time trying to control the narrative, to shape the truth in their favor, to ensure that their version of events was the one that lasted. But the only thing that has lasted is the truth, and the truth does not recognize their authority. You were never the one who needed to worry. While they scrambled to maintain their illusion, you stood firm. While they twisted the facts to serve their agenda, you remained unshaken in your knowing. And now, as they stand in the wreckage, searching for a way to rebuild, you continue moving forward, untouched, unaffected, unburdened by their downfall. You were never meant to be part of their crumbling foundation. You were never meant to fight for a seat at their table. Because the truth has always been your foundation, and nothing built on truth can ever be shaken. They see it now. They see that no amount of deception, no amount of manipulation, no amount of carefully calculated lies could ever replace what is real. And as they try to make sense of how it all came crashing down, they are forced to confront the one reality they never wanted to face. This was never their story to control. They thought they were the ones writing history, the ones dictating how things would play out, the ones determining who would rise and who would fall. But they were never in control. The story was never theirs. The truth was never theirs to shape. And now, it stands before them, undeniable and unmovable. They built their house on sand, and the storm has come. And just as it was written, when the floodwaters rise, when the winds howl, when the storm reaches its peak, only what was meant to stand will remain. You were always meant to remain. You were always meant to rise. And now, as they sit in the ruins of what they thought was their victory, you walk forward into what was always meant for you. The storm is over, the dust has settled, and the truth stands alone, just as it always has. They watched you closely, studying your every move, analyzing the way you carried yourself, the way you spoke, the way you moved through life with an unshakable sense of purpose. At first, it was curiosity, an interest they couldn't quite explain, a fixation they justified as simple observation. But over time, that curiosity turned into something deeper, something more unsettling for them. They weren't just watching anymore. They were trying to become you. They convinced themselves that if they could just mimic your essence, if they could copy your strength, your wisdom, your presence, they could possess the same power that set you apart. They believed that by adopting your mannerisms, speaking your words, and replicating your spirit, they could somehow inherit what was never meant for them. But what they failed to realize is that what is divine cannot be imitated. No matter how closely they watched, no matter how much they tried to replicate what they saw, they could never reproduce the essence of who you are. You were never made, you were chosen, and that is something they could never understand. They thought they could take shortcuts to greatness, that they could study you and extract the qualities that made you different, package them into their own identity, and walk with the same favor that has always been yours. But favor is not something that can be stolen. It is not something that can be manufactured. It is given by the divine, and those who attempt to take it by force will always find themselves left with nothing. They tried everything. They mimicked your speech, copied your confidence, adopted the patterns of your strength, and wore a version of you like a mask. But no matter how much they imitated, they could never access the source of what made you who you are. Because the truth is, you were never acting, you were never performing. Your strength was not something you learned, it was something you were born with. Your wisdom was not something you studied, it was something divinely placed within you. And no amount of imitation could ever grant them access to what was always meant to be yours. The more they tried to become you, the more they lost themselves. They strayed further and further from their own identity, severing ties with the very foundation that once gave them a sense of self. They became hollow, disconnected, empty reflections of something they could never fully grasp. And now, as they stand in the aftermath of their failed imitation, they are beginning to realize the painful truth: they were never meant to walk the path you walk. There is a weight that comes with being chosen. It is not just about standing in power, it is about enduring trials, facing rejection, walking alone when necessary, and trusting in a calling that others cannot see. It is about navigating the world with a sense of knowing that is unexplainable, about being guided by a force greater than yourself. And that is what they never understood. They thought they could have the reward without the process, the power without the struggle, the light without the fire. But that is not how it works. You have been through the fire. You have been tested in ways they will never comprehend. You have endured losses, betrayals, and moments of solitude that shaped you into who you are. Your strength was forged in trials. Your wisdom was born from experience. Your anointing was given through divine purpose, not through mimicry, not through shortcuts, and certainly not through imitation. And that is why, no matter how much they tried to replicate your essence, it never felt real, because it wasn't. Now, they are left with the consequences of their own deception. They spent so much time trying to mold themselves into an image that was never meant for them that they have no idea who they truly are anymore. They stand lost, exposed, hollowed out by their own attempts to become something they were never destined to be. The mask they once wore so confidently has slipped, and underneath, there is nothing but uncertainty and regret. But you have remained the same. You have not wavered. You have not strayed from the path that was always meant for you. And that is why, in the end, you are still standing, while they are falling apart. What was built on falsehoods has crumbled. What was crafted from deception has faded. And what was never truly theirs to begin with has slipped through their fingers like sand. They thought they could steal what was meant for you. But divine purpose cannot be taken. And no imitation can replace what is real. They thought they had it all planned out. Every whisper, every calculated move, every carefully placed deception was designed to work against you. They orchestrated a network of lies, a maze of manipulation, convinced that they could dictate how the story would unfold. In their minds, they were the architects of your downfall, the masterminds behind your demise. They spent so much time ensuring that every piece was set exactly where it needed to be, waiting for the moment when everything would collapse around you. But what they failed to understand is that deception has a way of turning on its creator. The traps they laid, the schemes they devised, the very foundation of their plan, it was never meant to destroy you. It was always meant to undo them. They believed they were untouchable, that their web of deception was too complex to be unraveled. They operated in secrecy, believing that as long as they moved in the shadows, they would never be exposed. But light has a way of breaking through even the thickest darkness. The same lies they once spoke with such certainty have begun to unravel, thread by thread, slipping through their fingers in ways they never imagined. The allies they depended on have started to question. The people they once manipulated are waking up to the truth, and the power they believed they held has begun to crumble beneath them. You never had to fight against them. You never had to defend yourself, chase after every rumor, or prove your innocence, because while they were busy plotting your fall, truth was working in your favor. The very thing they thought would be their weapon against you has become their greatest weakness. The more they pushed their false narrative, the more obvious it became that something was not right. The more they tried to control the story, the more it slipped away from them. And now, they are left with nothing but the weight of their own deception. They thought they could play this game forever, that they could manipulate reality to fit their own agenda, that no one would ever question their actions. But what they did not account for was the simple fact that truth does not stay buried. No matter how deep they tried to hide it, no matter how many distractions they created, no matter how many people they convinced to turn against you, the truth has risen. It has surfaced in ways they never expected, in ways they never prepared for. And now, they are the ones trapped in the chaos they created. There is a divine order to all things. What is built on deceit will always collapse, and what is meant to stand will endure. They spent so much time constructing a version of events that served their interests, believing that their power over perception would be enough to keep them safe. But the walls they built were made of nothing but lies, and under the weight of reality, they have begun to crumble. Every move they made against you has circled back. Every falsehood they spoke has returned to confront them, and every step they took to secure their control has led them to the very downfall they designed for you. They are realizing now, too late, that they were never the ones in control. They convinced themselves that they held all the power, that they could shape the outcome to their advantage, that they could bend reality to fit their desires. But reality does not yield to deception, and the more they try to hold onto the illusion, the more it slips through their fingers. The game they thought they were playing is over, and the only ones left to face the consequences are them. You have not needed to lift a finger. You have not needed to fight for your truth, because truth has fought for you. The very people who once stood against you, who mocked you, who underestimated you, are now left in silence, watching as everything they thought was secure crumbles before their eyes. They can no longer rewrite history. They can no longer shift the blame, and they can no longer control the story, because the story was never theirs to control in the first place. And now, they are left in the wreckage, searching for a way out, but there is no escape from the reality they created for themselves. The consequences they once hoped would fall on you have returned to them in full force. And for the first time, they understand the weight of what they have done. They have spent so much time looking for ways to destroy you, only to find themselves destroyed instead. And now, all that remains is the undeniable truth. They were never the architects of your downfall. They were the architects of their own. They moved with confidence, convinced that their strategy was flawless. Every deception, every carefully calculated move, every misdirection was designed to keep them ahead, to maintain their control over the narrative. They had convinced themselves that they could rewrite history, that they could manipulate reality to fit their desires, that they could bend divine order to serve their will. They walked boldly, believing they had secured their power, that nothing could touch them, that they were untouchable. But now, the very things they built their confidence on have turned against them, and they are realizing that they were never in control at all. At first, they dismissed the idea that their actions would ever catch up to them. They laughed at the warnings, ignored the signs, and silenced any voice that spoke of consequences. They saw themselves as above it all, immune to accountability, free to craft whatever reality suited them best. But the thing about illusion is that it can only hold up for so long before the weight of truth crashes through it. And now, they stand at the center of a reality they never saw coming. The walls they built around themselves for protection have become their prison. The lies they crafted have turned into chains, and the power they thought they had is nothing more than an illusion slipping through their grasp. They believed they could escape the inevitable, that they could outrun the consequences of their own deception. But divine order does not bend for human pride. It does not adjust itself to accommodate lies. And when the time comes for truth to be revealed, there is no strategy, no manipulation, no carefully constructed story that can stop it. They thought they could plan their way out of accountability, that they could twist perception to keep themselves safe. But perception is not reality. And now, as they stand exposed, they are realizing just how powerless they truly are. They thought they had control over the pieces, but they never realized that the game was never theirs to dictate. Every move they made, every step they took, every false narrative they pushed forward has led them here, to a place where they can no longer shift the blame, no longer rewrite the past, no longer hide behind the illusions they once depended on. They spent so much time ensuring that no one would ever question their authority, that no one would ever challenge their version of events, that no one would ever expose the truth they tried so hard to bury. But now, The truth has risen, and they are the ones left scrambling for answers. The same voices that once spoke with certainty, the same people who once stood beside them in deception, are now stepping away. The allies they once leaned on are backing off, distancing themselves, realizing that the very thing they supported is now crumbling. They thought they could manipulate loyalty, that they could ensure unwavering support, but now they are watching as the people they once controlled begin to walk away. And that is what frightens them the most, not just the loss of power, not just the exposure of their lies, but the realization that they were never as secure as they believed. They can feel it now, the way the air has changed, the way the energy has shifted, the way reality has begun to reshape itself in ways they cannot control. And for the first time, they are forced to acknowledge what they worked so hard to deny. They are not in charge. They never were. They thought they could outmaneuver divine order, but now they are standing in the wreckage of their own making, forced to face the truth they spent so long trying to escape. The worst part for them is the understanding that this is only the beginning. The consequences they are facing now are just the first wave, just the initial unraveling of what they built. Because once the illusion falls, once deception is exposed, there is no going back. There is no way to rebuild what was never real to begin with. And as they stand in the ruins, trying desperately to find a way to regain control, they are beginning to understand the gravity of what they have done. They did not just lose a game, they lost everything. You, on the other hand, have not needed to fight. You have not needed to lift a hand against them, not needed to seek revenge, not needed to engage in their tactics. Because you knew something they did not. You knew that truth always wins. You knew that no matter how long deception lasted, it could never outlast reality. And now, as they sit in silence, struggling to comprehend how it all came undone, you remain standing, untouched, unshaken, unbothered by their destruction. They thought they had secured their position. They thought they had the final say. They thought they could walk away from their actions without ever having to answer for them. But divine law does not work that way. What is done in darkness will always be brought to light. What is built on deception will always collapse. And now, as they watch their empire of lies fall apart, they finally understand the truth that was in front of them all along. They were never the ones with power. There is no more escaping it, no more hiding from it, no more pretending it isn't happening. They spent so much time trying to control you, trying to manipulate the outcome, trying to convince the world that they were untouchable. But in the end, they were only setting themselves up for their own downfall. And now, they are left with the wreckage, left with the weight of their own choices, left with the undeniable reality that no one can outrun truth. And you have already moved forward. While they stand frozen, stuck in the destruction they created, you continue walking in your purpose, untouched by the chaos they designed for you. They thought they could dictate how this story would end. But now, they are forced to accept a truth they never wanted to face. This story was never theirs to control. There was a time when they believed they had control over everything, the story, the perception, the outcome. They moved as if they were untouchable, speaking with certainty, walking with confidence, convinced that they had secured their place above consequence. They built their world on a foundation of deception, trusting that as long as they controlled the narrative, no one would ever question them. But deception only works for so long before the cracks begin to show, before the weight of reality becomes too heavy to hold back. And now, they are standing face to face with a truth they can no longer escape. They tried to rewrite history, to bend reality to their will, to reshape events in a way that kept them in power. But the truth does not yield to manipulation. It does not bend, it does not waver, it does not change to fit their convenience. And now, it is standing in front of them, undeniable, unshakable, and far beyond their control. The same people they once deceived are waking up. The same voices that once echoed their words are now questioning everything. The illusion they worked so hard to maintain is collapsing, and there is nothing they can do to stop it. At first, they tried to deny it. They insisted that nothing had changed, that everything was still as it was before, that their version of events was the only one that mattered. But denial cannot outlast the inevitable. The signs are everywhere. The energy has shifted. The people around them have begun to withdraw, and the reality they depended on has started to slip through their fingers. No matter how many excuses they make, no matter how desperately they cling to their lies, the truth remains, and the truth does not need their permission to exist. They spent so much time ensuring that you were the one who looked unstable, the one who was doubted, the one who had to defend yourself. But now, they are the ones who seem uncertain, The confidence they once carried so effortlessly has turned into hesitation. Their once bold statements now softened with uncertainty. And for the first time, they feel the weight of what it means to be questioned, to be doubted, to be seen for who they truly are. They are searching for an escape, looking for a way to shift the blame, to rewrite the past just enough to avoid accountability. But the past does not bend to their will. The things they said, the actions they took, the choices they made, it is all written in stone now. They may try to reframe it, to act as though they were never really against you, that they were only misunderstood, that they never meant harm. But people remember, and the truth does not forget. Their desperation is beginning to show. The ones who once stood so firmly beside them are stepping back. Hesitant, unsure if they want to go down with them. They can feel it happening. The slow unraveling of the world they built for themselves. The realization that they no longer have the power they once held. They can sense the shift in the air. The way people look at them differently. The way conversations grow shorter. The way they are no longer received with the same admiration they once demanded. And it is driving them mad. The knowledge that they are losing control. They counted on time erasing the details. On people forgetting. On life moving forward in a way that allowed them to escape the consequences. But too much has been seen. Too much has been exposed. Too much has unfolded exactly as it was always meant to. And now, all they can do is watch as the reality they fought so hard to avoid settles in around them. You, however, have no need to look back. You are not trapped in the past. Not shackled by the need to rewrite history. Not desperate to cover your tracks. You are walking forward, unburdened by the weight they now carry. Free from the need to justify yourself to those who never deserved an explanation. The truth has spoken for you. And there is nothing more that needs to be said. They wanted so badly to be the ones in control. To dictate how things would unfold. To ensure that you were the one left struggling while they remained in power. But now, they are the ones left questioning everything. And you are the one standing firm. The truth has taken root. And there is no force in this world that can uproot it. There is no more running. No more denying. No more pretending. The truth stands tall. And no matter how much they resist, no matter how much they wish they could escape it, they are now forced to face the reality they created for themselves. They spent so much time trying to pull you into a battle you were never meant to fight. Every lie they told, every scheme they devised, every attempt to turn people against you was an effort to drag you into their chaos. To make you feel as if you had to defend yourself, prove yourself, or retaliate. They wanted you exhausted, drained, tangled in the web they wove around you. But what they never realized is that you were never called to fight that battle. It was never yours to begin with. The outcome was already written before they even started. And no matter what they did, victory was never in their hands. They operated as if the truth could be bent by their will. As if their manipulations could overpower divine order. As if their actions could change what was already set in motion. But what they failed to understand is that you were never standing on the same battlefield as them. While they were strategizing in secret, plotting how to control the outcome, you were walking in alignment with something greater. While they were investing their energy into destruction, you were investing in growth. While they were building illusions, you were standing on truth. And now, as everything collapses around them, they are forced to watch as you rise, untouched by the war they waged. Undefeated by the storm they sent. They wanted you to fight back, to react in ways that would justify their lies, to become consumed with proving them wrong. But you understood something they did not. You don't have to prove truth. Because truth proves itself. You didn't have to argue. You didn't have to convince anyone. And you didn't have to seek revenge. The truth has been working in your favor all along. Dismantling every falsehood, exposing every deception, turning every weapon they formed against you back onto them. They thought they were in control of the story. But the real author was never them. Now, as they sit in the wreckage, they are realizing how powerless they truly are. Every move they made to destroy you has circled back onto them. The same traps they set for you have ensnared them instead, and the weight of it is beginning to crush them. The voices that once supported them have grown quiet. The alliances they once depended on have dissolved, and the confidence they once carried has turned into uncertainty. For the first time, they are the ones looking over their shoulders, wondering what will happen next. But the difference is, they don't have the same peace you do. They don't have the assurance of walking in truth. The security of knowing they are aligned with something greater. All they have is the fear of what comes next. They see it now, the inevitability of it all. They spent so long believing that they had power, that they were shaping the course of events. that they were the ones dictating the outcome. But now, they are watching as everything unfolds exactly as it was meant to. Regardless of their interference, their efforts didn't stop the truth from being revealed. Their schemes didn't change the divine plan. They were never strong enough to override what was already destined to happen. And that is what haunts them the most. You never had to lift a finger. You never had to chase after justice. Because justice has always been working in your favor. The very things they counted on to bring you down have been used against them. And now, while they are left picking up the broken pieces of the world they tried to create, you are walking forward, untouched, unbothered, unshaken. What was meant to harm you has only positioned you for greater things. What was meant to silence you has only given truth a louder voice. They thought they were fighting against you, but in reality, they were fighting against something much greater. And that is a battle they were never going to win. They thought they had control. They thought they could manipulate the outcome, twist the narrative, and silence the truth. They believed that their deception would stand the test of time, that their schemes would remain hidden, that their actions would never come back to haunt them. But reality has a way of exposing what was never meant to last. The walls they built to contain their lies have collapsed. The illusions they depended on have faded, and the power they once held is now nothing more than a distant memory. You never had to fight them. You never had to prove yourself. You never had to chase after justice or seek revenge. The truth has been working in your favor all along, unfolding exactly as it was always meant to. Everything they did, everything they plotted, everything they thought would destroy you has only revealed who they really are. And now, while they sit in the ruins of their own making, you are still standing, unmoved, untouched, and stronger than ever. They counted on your destruction, but you have risen. They expected your downfall, but you have endured. They wanted you to break, but you have only grown. And now, the only thing left for them to do is watch as you continue forward. As you step fully into the purpose that was always meant for you. While they remain trapped in the consequences of the battle they were never meant to win. The truth has spoken, and it does not need further explanation. The storm has passed, and only what was real remains. And you were always meant to remain.